I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm the youngest of the family. Not a lot of parental supervision because my brother had Hopkins disease, and my mother had to spend a lot of time with him in and out of the hospital and trying to hold down a job and take care of the kids. She's a very caring woman, but very stern, and me and her got along very well. That's because I wasn't a bad child, I guess you would say. My dad, him and I didn't get along because of my transgender. I usually was a teacher's pet, and I did really well in school until I got to high school, and that's when a lot of the problems started with my transgender. I don't think that I ever came out because when I grew up, I already had the characteristics of transgender, and I got into a lot of physical fights. It made my grades really low because I stopped going to school. My mother, she took me up to see the psychiatrist at the school, and she was explaining to him that I was transgender, and that was a lot of problems, with me in school. And he told her I would grow out of it, and of course I never did. I used to hang out with friends. I love to hang out with the transgender friends. We used to hang out in the basement of my mother's house, just talking and trying different makeup and perfumes and stuff. And so that's when my mother told me that they needed to leave. And my mother said, and you need to leave with them. And so I got put out too. We all was put out, and that's, and so I was in the street and went to my father's house, and he didn't deal with my transgenderism at all. We had fights several times, and then he put me out in the street, and I was just out in the street, hanging out. You have to look for somebody to take you in. Sometimes they take you in for all the wrong reasons. And finally, somebody told me about this program, and that they would take me in. It was like a Christian type program, and they said that they would take me in and make sure that I had some place to eat and sleep. And my mother, she found out where I was because she called my stepmother, and my stepmother told her that my father had beat me up and put me out on the street, and that I was in this program. And she gave her the number to the program, and she called me, and she said, I don't want you out there in the street all by yourself. I want you to come back home. It was better. I think it was better for the both of us, because I think while I was gone, it gave her a chance to think about her course in raising me, and it gave me a chance to understand why she would reject me just because of my transgenderism. When I first came in, they segregated me from the rest of the prison population, so it wasn't as scary as it could have been. Isolation is when you're in your cell, locked in, away from the rest of the population, for 23 hours out of the day. You would come out for 1 hour, and on the weekends you don't come out at all. I felt like I was being punished because I was singled out to be treated differently than the rest of the population, and that lasted for, about 6 months. Wow. Terre Haute was open, a lot of stealing, a lot of drinking, a lot of fights, somebody had told me, like, the day before that these inmates were planning to rape me, and I didn't believe them at first. And then that night, 2 inmates came in my cell, and one of them had a knife, and they started to beat me up, and then they tore my clothes off of me, put the knife to my throat, and told me if I didn't do what they wanted done, they was going to stab me in my throat. So after they raped me, they left. I really didn't know what to do, whether I should go tell somebody, whether I should keep it to myself. I thought for sure that someone from the administration would come and say something to me because it was obvious that I had been assaulted. But also you got to be aware that the people that did the assaulting was doing everything they can to keep me out of the sight of the officials. But they did see me several times when I went to Mainline, which is to the chow hall, and nobody said anything. I did end up telling my case manager what had happened, and she wrote a report, but that's all she did, and nothing ever came of it. They didn't take me to the doctors or, take me to see the investigating officers or anything like that. When you go to the hospital and tell them that you've been raped, they automatically do a report and have you see a doctor and stuff like that. But in prison, you don't have that option. At least you didn't when I got raped. You just accepted it and tried to move on. I didn't really consider it to be a real ball move. I guess that's because I was personally affected. But it still haunted me in my mind that they had did it and got away with it. And that's what motivated me to file a lawsuit. I filed the suit when I was in Springfield. And what happened was I was in solitary confinement, and the only thing I could do was go to the law library. And so I would go to the library almost every day and spend countless hours in there just reading books, law books, cases. And that's where I got the inspiration to file the lawsuit. And I filed it in Wisconsin, and they only had 2 judges there. And I knew that my case was going to go to Shabazz. And, of course, he dismissed it. I knew he would. But I thought that the 7th Circuit would pick it up, and they didn't. And so my only option was to file a writ of certiorari. And then filing a writ of certiorari, I emphasized the facts, and I just told my story about how I was raped and, prison officials didn't do anything. And I think that's what was the most compelling, because I let 2 or 3 inmates read the petition before I sent it in, and they all said that was the most compelling part, was me telling them about the rape. I really didn't think that I had a chance of getting approved, because there's only very few approvals for the Supreme Court. But maybe first think that it was going to get approved is that the Supreme Court clerk wrote a letter requesting a copy of the file. That signaled to me that there was some kind of review going on. They wanted the file. Once they did that, I contacted the ACLU, Alvin Bronstein, and asked him if the court approved the case, would they represent me? And he said, yeah. So he wrote a letter to the clerk saying that they would represent me if the writ of certiorari was granted. I in Florence, Colorado, the counselor had called me in for a legal call, said that my lawyer wanted to talk to me, and I didn't know that it was about the Supreme Court case. But when he called, they told me, and I was just so happy because I knew that it would help not only me but help others too. Because at Terre Haute, there was a lot of incidents in which transgender persons were taken advantage of. It makes me feel good. You know, there has been some inmates I've met on my journey, and they have actually came up and gave me a hug and say, you made it safe for us, thank you. Just different things they would say to me that make me feel good about bringing the case to the Supreme Court. I like the people to know that the struggle for transgenderism is still very much alive and very much needed. Some of the changes that need to be made is with the transgender community itself, and that the transgender community in prison very much needs the support of the transgenders outside of the prison. Make them feel that they haven't been forgotten. That a lot of them don't have any support whatsoever, no family support or friends. When they come to prison, they don't have anybody to look out for them or to assist them. It makes me feel good that my case is being used to help other prisoners and just bring notoriety to the problem that it has not disappeared because Farmer versus Brennan was approved, that it still goes on. Much work needs to be done to try to eliminate more of the problems the LGBT inmates face in prison.